Hey team, welcome back. Okay, so at this point we can navigate to our create project task form. So now we need to start working on the action so that we can create this project task. Just as a recap, we already have the types for our backlog actions, and we also have a reducer for our backlog actions as well. Although we're not going to use the reducer when we create a new project task, I just want to make sure that you guys are clear that we have already done this work. And I made a mistake in the import, and that was caught in the last video, so just make sure that this is okay. All right, so first step that we need to take here is to create obviously a backlog actions file. So we're going to call it backlog actions.js. Okay, so now that we're in backlog actions.js, I think that the first thing that we want to do is take care of a very important import, which is to bring Axios in. Okay, from Axios. Okay, next thing that we might want to do is actually also bring in all the types that we're going to be using later on. Although, you know what, I really don't want to see any of those warnings when you have imports that you're not using, because sometimes that can be a little confusing. So let's just bring them as we start using them. Okay, so here we're going to create our first action for backlog, and it's going to be export const add project task. Okay, and this is going to take the following parameters. It's going to take the backlog ID, is going to take the new project task that we're creating, and then it's obviously going to create the history, because when we're done, if everything goes well, then we want to be taken back to the project board, right? So with this in place, then we're going to do an arrow function. We're going to set up our dispatch. Okay, and then we're going to start working on wiring up the happy path. Okay, I think for now I might wire up the whole thing, because I don't think that we're gonna get to a point where we're going to wire up the component in this lecture. So let's just wire up everything that we need to have here. Or you know what, let me think about it for a second. Actually, you know what, let's wire the whole happy path first, because I really don't want to commit any more code that is untested and then having to fix things. Please bear with me if this lecture goes a little long, okay? But I'd rather wrap up the lecture with everything working rather than leaving things to chance, all right? I'm sure you guys agree with me. All right, so this time I think with this time around we're going to use the response. Actually, no, we're not gonna. We don't have a reducer for this, so we don't need the response, okay? So we're just gonna do a wait Axios post. Oh, my apologies. It's Axios. Good. I'm glad that we were able to catch that one early on. And this is why, like, you know why I would have made this mistake, would have left things here, then we would have tried and fix it in the next lecture, and then it would have been, oh, I have to go clean up after myself. So you know what? I'm just gonna stick to having lectures where we have code that we can test as much as possible, of course. I think that the exception is going to be when we start doing security, because there are portions of the security that we cannot just test before finishing wiring things up, and sometimes that might take a little longer. Okay. All right, so basically we're going to post to API/backlog/ the backlog ID. Okay. And if you don't remember where this is coming from, I'm just going to bring you back to the backlog controller real quick, because I really want this to make sense to you. And if we go back to the post mapping, we are at API backlog, and then we have to pass the backlog ID that we're trying to add the project task to. Okay, so I hope that made perfect sense where things are coming from. And then remember, when we use that route, we pass it the project task. Okay, cool. Then with that in place, then if everything goes well, what we want to do for now is that we want to push this back to backticks again, and we want to just go back to the project board of that specific project, which is again the backlog ID. Okay, and again, this is just, I think, our happy path for now. We don't have any try catch or anything right now. Right now we're just kind of hoping that everything's just gonna go dandy. Okay, so with this in place, we need to go back to our project task, and we're gonna start wiring up our project task, and then in the end we're gonna try and submit the form. Okay, so first let's take care of imports. So I'm gonna import our connect from React Redux, so we can connect our component to the state. Then we're going to import class names for a validation. And I'm pretty sure that we're at a point where you guys can actually go do this on your own. Like, I'm pretty sure we're there right now. Import class names, form, not form, from. Good. Okay. Then obviously we need to import our action. Import AddProjectTask. I think that's what we named it. Yes, AddProjectTask. From, and here we're going to do a little bit of IntelliSense. Okay, it's not there. Actions, there it is. Actions, then backlog actions. And this is why I love using VS Code and the extensions, because it really helps you in your coding. And then we also have to import prop types. And these are all things that we have used and done before. So everything right now should be clicking, and you guys should be like, you know what, I'm going to stop the video, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm just going to come back in case I get stuck, or I just want to come back to make sure that what this dude did is what I did. And again, if your solution is different to mine, don't panic, because when you watch my solution, then now you know two ways of doing the same thing. So look at it that way, okay? So I think that I just want to wire things up enough so that we can submit this. So I'm going to use connect here as we did before. We're not going to do the state to props just now, although we're going to need it. We're going to bring the project task here. Good. Then we're going to set up the prop types right now. And for now, we're just, since we're not handling any errors, we're just going to set the prop types here for the add project task. Task colon prop types dot func dot is required. And believe it or not, the other reason why I'm able to go a little faster is because I am getting better with React too, right? The more and more I've practiced, and the more and more I've had the pleasure of teaching you React in the Spring Boot context, the better I get, the more natural this comes to me. And again, React's a beautiful technology. It's just React and Redux together. They just have a bunch of moving parts. That is all. That's literally that's it, right? Okay, so now in order for this to work, we wanna make this a controlled component. So we need a constructor here. Now this constructor is gonna be the first time that we're actually passing props to our constructor, and the reason being is because we do want to extract, when we load the form, we do want us to extract this because we have to pass this onto the action, okay? Which is how the backend is wired to work, okay? You pass it this, and then you pass it a valid project task object, okay? So this is the first time that we're actually going to take props in a constructor. Super props to here, okay? And then we're going to start wiring things up to make this a controlled component. This.state, okay? And then remember the cleanup that we did when we created the project form, and remember that we wanted to make sure that all the attributes were in the input fields in name attribute, right? So we need to do that again. All right, so we go to the input field, and actually I'm going to open my project task object here, and I really just want to make sure that everything is nice and clean. Okay, so summary, we're passing the summary, acceptance criteria, perfect. We are also passing the due date. We're also passing the name priority, and let me see what else. And we're also passing the status. Perfect. And then we're submitting. And then the backlog we don't pass. The ID we don't pass. The project sequence gets generated automatically. And the project identifier, that's also, we also don't pass that, although we might be using it later. But we don't pass that in the form. Right now, remember, I'm controlling the form. Okay, and we don't generate this in the form. All right, so I think our form is nice and clean right now. So what we can do is do that same little hack that I did before, which is not a hack. I don't know why I'm calling it a hack, but anyway, give me just a moment. I'm just gonna do something real quick here in the background, real quick, I promise. And I'm going to get the backlog by ID. And all I'm going to do is the same thing that I did before. I am going to grab all the things that I know I have to pass: priority, status, acceptance criteria, and summary. I am going to copy this from here because I do want to make sure that we are controlling the right attributes, which is what we need to pass in our state. So we're just gonna set everything to blank. Even the priority, I think we want to set to blank, I think. Okay, actually, this is okay, now you remember, I'm sure you remember that when we were working on our backend in the service, remember that we had a bug that we had to fix on the AddProjectTask, and it was right here. Remember, in the future we said, I was comparing if project task get priority 0 or null. I was saying that then set it to the lowest, and remember that it blew up on us because we're not passing anything as 0 right now. Okay, so what we want to do is actually get that condition here again on the Java server, and this is just one quick refactor that we need to do now. Project task, and then get priority equals 0. If it's 0, which is going to be the starting state on our priority, okay, and this is important because if we don't pick anything, then it's just default to 0, which is in turn gonna just go back to 3. Okay, but the reason why I'm defaulting it to 0 is because I still want the form to be loaded as select a priority. Okay, still I wanted this to be and if you want, you can preload it to 3 directly and not have this workaround that I'm having right now. But I think that a normal user experience is that it is clear that you need to select 1 if you want to select 1. If not, it's just gonna go straight to low. Okay, this is how I want to wire it up. You feel free to make your own design decisions at this point. Okay, so with this in place, I'm just gonna restart this. All right, and actually this is gonna be a good test for this. Now that we added that additional thing. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to initialize the priority to 0, okay? Because that way we're always setting up our priority, okay? Then the due date is going to be null, and then here's an important piece, and this is why we're bringing props here, okay? So the project identifier is going to be the ID that we have in the parameters, okay? And for this, we're passing props so that we can extract that ID that we're passing on the route. Okay, so const ID. Don't worry, I'm gonna get back to this because I know that, again, a lot of moving parts. That's the thing with this beautiful technology, is that it has a lot of moving parts. Okay. So basically all we're saying is that I'm going to extract this from here and make it our project identifier, so that when in the server, when we're adding here, when we take this in the project server, in the project service, is the project identifier that we're passing on. Here, project identifier, that's how we set this here. So that's why we need it there, right? We're literally extracting it from the URL. I know that either it makes sense or it's starting to make sense. It's one or the other. I know that your guys are not that far behind, even if it's still a little confusing. Okay, so with this in place, now that we have this and now that we have taken care of the names and the input fields, then what we're going to do is again we're gonna link the value of the input field to the state, which we have done before. Okay, so we're gonna do value curly braces this dot state dot summary again, and then do the double check that the name attribute is here, and then we're just going to do that for each individual field. Ooh, I think that this one's going to be a little long. But I really don't want to do all this coding without testing. So I think that you guys are really going to have to bear with me, because I really do not want to do all this coding and all this explanation without you guys being absolutely certain that this thing works. Okay, so then again here, priority, then value, then this dot state dot priority, and then the same thing, and we're gonna leave this here the way it is, okay, because we want this to be the preset state for this piece, okay. And then status, give me just a moment, and then status is going to be the same thing, the name's right there. So value this dot state dot status. Okay, now with the status, let me check something real quick in the server, because I want to know what's our condition to store status. If the status is blank or null, it just goes to do. Perfect. All right, and this is blank here. All right, perfect. Okay, so with this in place, I'm just going to save this, and then going to come here and make sure that we cannot select anything or type anything. Guys, you know what? This is really getting way too long of a video. I'm afraid. So we have our control component now. You know what? I'm gonna take a leap of faith in me, and I'm gonna stop the video here. Okay. Right now the app is running, and right now we have a controlled component where we cannot type anything. And actually, you guys know what to do. You guys know exactly what you need to do to make this work, to finish the cycle and actually even troubleshoot if you run into trouble. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and make this a control component, finish the cycle of the onChange function, create the onSubmit function, and actually go take a leap of faith and actually finish this up on your own. Okay? Don't worry, I'll come right back and finish this up too with you. I just don't want this lecture is already way too long, okay? So I'm gonna shut up, commit this code, and then I'll see you in the next one to finish the cycle.